Hey guys, this is Scott Horn with First Option Title. And in this video, I'm gonna take a minute and just talk about, sellers who wind up being underwater, meaning simply they owe more than the property is worth or what they agreed to sell the house for. So I hope you like the video. If you do, take a minute and like it, please. And come see us on our YouTube channel as well. Now, fortunately, you don't see this too often in the industry, but every once in a while, things happen. So what can pop up out there that I can think about real quick? Well, number one, the seller doesn't have a good grasp on what their actual mortgage payment is. Maybe they did a loan mod in the past, put it on a 40-year amortization, not a 30 or a 20. They think they owe a lot less because they paid payments for the last 2, 3, 4 years, and they realize, oh my gosh, I still owe how much? Sellers don't know how to look at amortization schedules, and they don't look at their mortgage statements always, and they just don't know what it is they don't know again. Or what's more common than that is there are various liens on the property that they have just forgotten about. I've seen it where they forget about a loan modification they did. They did it years ago, just forgot about it, and there's this big number hanging out there that because it's been out of sight, out of mind, poof. And until it's brought up to them at the closing table, they go, I forgot. And it's, well, too late. It has to be dealt with, especially on a cash basis. Or they got sued, never answered the lawsuit, got a default judgment, didn't realize that that could be abstracted and attached to a property. And now they got to deal with that too. Fortunately, here in our Texas marketplace, if it's a homestead, we can remove those judgment liens. But a lot of other states, you cannot remove those, or there's limits to what you can or cannot do. Then we come up with our wonderful child supports that can pop up. Now, child supports usually only attached to the bad actor. So if there's a husband and wife, and the husband, which it normally is the bad actor, owes money, and there's net proceeds coming out, the wife will get half of the net, but the husband, whatever that might be, has to pay his proceeds to satisfy that child support lien, or the deal is not closing. The Attorney General offices will usually treat those the same wherever you might be. And if there is no money changing hands, then the AG's office will release those pretty straightforward, pretty quickly. But if there is money going to the bad actor, they're going to want to get it to satisfy that child support lien, which is, in the light of things, the right thing to do along the way. And all types of little issues like this can arise. Property taxes can go up. Today, most mortgages, though, are being escrowed, so it's not an issue because the lender, and in most cases there are lenders, are escrowing for taxes already. So we've taken that out of the equation a little bit. But the bottom line is oftentimes sellers can come to the table and be underwater. And then you kind of got to figure out, well, if that's the case, what do I do as a buyer? Can I solve the problem? Well, maybe if you've got a situation where the seller is in, let's say they're in some type of active foreclosure with a first lien mortgage, and they have a second and a third, or who knows what other kind of mortgages that might be out there, or liens or judgment liens, and that foreclosure is going to extinguish all of those. Can you use that as a tool to go negotiate a reduced balance? Sure you can. If I'm a judgment creditor and my judgment attaches to this property, knowing that A, it could get removed within 30 days if it was a homestead, or if it's not a homestead, but it's a legitimate lien on the property has to be dealt with, and my option is to get something versus nothing, I'm probably going to get something, and I'm going to make that deal. That's just common sense. Child support will probably act that way, so that if there are any net proceeds, they want them. And even junior mortgage companies, when they understand the situation and can verify and validate it, they will negotiate to a certain degree as well. They may release the lien. They will not release the obligation in most cases, but at least will free up the seller to sell the house, bring that payment down in line to help the sale get done and be closed. Even the IRS will do this along the way. And again, so many people don't realize that IRS liens can be recorded in deed records and can affect the title of their property, whether it's owner occupied or non. It's a legitimate deal that has to be dealt with. But it's about giving them scenarios so they understand how to do that. Now, trying to negotiate with the IRS, I'm not sure what much is worse in life than trying to do that, because you're going to bang your head against the wall. And it just takes time because it moves slow. So if those issues are out there, just expect it maybe 30, 60, 90 days or more to get the IRS to respond and work with you in some format out there. You know, if a seller, again, is underwater, we still have this thing called the short sale that's out there. It was really prevalent years ago, and it has greatly diminished over the last, 3, 5, 7 years or so. But it's still available based on the circumstances, the property and whatnot. But the lenders today, max deduction is, 80% of the appraised value of the property, maybe 85%. Rarely are you going to get down much less. Sometimes they'll look at the actual appraised value of the home, if it's a distressed type property along the way, and work with you. But that's going to be a time issue. And if you don't know how to do short sales, you need to hire a company that does that professionally. And there are companies out there that do all those kind of things that help the seller get through the short sales out there. So there's many ways to look at it. Can you find other ways to negotiate that deal? No, for instance, if the seller's underwater because of all these various reasons, can I as an investor change it from a cash deal maybe to a creative finance subject to deal? Okay. I buy deals all the time subject to the existing debt that have judgment liens or IRS liens on them. Why? Because I know that they have certain lives to them and they will expire at certain time frames. But it's learning how to look at that deal through a different lens that may help to resurrect a deal that looks like it's going to die, that you now can create it to where it's going to survive. So our sellers can come forward. They can have issues where they're underwater. They have negotiation options with their lien holders that are out there. There are creative finance ways that may work based on various circumstances and what is actually out there. And it's just having that knowledge base that will help you negotiate with your seller a deal that may work. Now guys, sometimes based on these situations, it just ain't gonna work, okay? Seller's too far underwater, the situation is too bad. And every once in a while, you've got to just learn to walk away. And sometimes that's your best move. Now, personally, I like trying to make every deal work if possible. But I'm not going to push that envelope to a point where it just doesn't happen. And of course, every time you get into these situations, you hurry up to wait because there's going to be a delay issue. And the question becomes, does the seller have time to wait? Yes, no. And you never know what the answer is going to be that way. But learning how just to have the ability to talk the game, to create options for that transaction is so beneficial. Now look at a deal also where maybe a seller's underwater by, let's say, a few $1,000s, $5,000 or so. That's a big difference than being underwater by $50,000 in that instance. Maybe it's worth to step up to the plate and pay all of that shortfall or a little bit of it. Maybe the seller can come to the table with a little bit of cash and you do the same to make that deal work so it gets the seller out of whatever the situation is that they're in, along the way. But you just never know how that's going to be. Again, I just think things like HOAs, HOA liens, that can hang out there that sometimes there might be either unpaid dues or liens placed on properties by the HOA company for various infrastructure issues that might be out there. Getting this information in advance, having an anticipation of what it is before you get to the sale, I think is so important too. So, you're hoping that if a realtor is involved in a transaction, that at least they have done their homework to help preclude most of these things from happening. But these poor realtors sometimes, until a title commitment comes in, because the seller hasn't shared with them some of these things, they just don't know. There are some things, though, that the realtors can do in advance, or as you're talking to that seller as an investor one-on-one without a realtor involved, just going through this litany of questions, asking the questions. Who's your first lien mortgage? Have you got a copy of the mortgage statement? Can we look at that? Do you have a second lien mortgage at all? Have you ever done a loan modification? If so, have you got a copy of that paperwork? Are we in an HOA? Yes or no? What are the HOA dues? Have they sent you anything regarding any type of a HOA lien that might be out there on your property as well as on everybody else's property that was put in place? Are you current on your dues? Are your property taxes current? Does your lender escrow taxes? Of course, you'd see that on the mortgage statement. And almost always there's not going to be an issue in those cases when the taxes are escrowed with the lender. Are there any possible judgments that could be against you? Did anything happen in the last 2, 5, 8, 9, 10 years that could be out there that could be detrimental to it? Just asking some reasonable questions when you're talking to that seller and or their realtor is a viable thing to do, especially when you're in a distressed scenario. Because when you're in a distressed scenario, the seller's going to be behind in payments usually. If they're behind in payments, they're behind in taxes, they're behind in HOA dues, and they're behind in everything, almost always. But just learning how to ask some generalities in a very nice way without being pushy, but just saying, hey, I got to know what these things are. What we don't want to do is get to a point where we come to the closing table, we discover all of a sudden we have all these issues, nobody wins, and we don't want to waste each other's time as we go through this. So I think you can look at things like this from all of those perspectives. So you can head off some of these problems in advance, but not always. Then having that ability to discuss options A, B, or C, whatever those might be, to help the seller, which at the end of the day helps you as well, would be a positive mechanism to do. So taking the time just to understand some of these things, guys, I think is so important to learn along the way, how you can help sellers in these situations, and at the same time, helping yourself is always a positive. It helps you be more successful in your real estate transaction. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please like it again. Give us your questions. We'll do our best to answer those for you. And we hope you come see us and join us over on our YouTube channel as well. We'll see you guys next time.